Hi all, Kinsey Schofield here, and I am with the author of Meghan. I'm with the author of The Queen, and probably most famously, Diana, Her True Story. I've had the pleasure to talk to you about a lot of these books, but it's been a while since I've caught up with you, Andrew Morton, and you know I am the president of your fan club, so this is a long time coming.
It's been a long time. I think the last time we saw each other was briefly during the King's coronation, and everybody was working hard.
Well, I have an excellent picture of that. I'm going to submit it so that we can show it right here. One of my favorite pictures ever, because you are such a tall human being. It's like I'm standing next to an NBA player.
Well, in the NBA, I'd be short. I'm 6'4". What are you?
I'm 5'7", but you were much taller than me that day. So I saw you speak at a charity event, I believe, in Pasadena, and you were talking about The Crown coming out, and we were kind of anticipating the season where Diana was going to work with the infamous Andrew Morton on this secret book, but we hadn't seen it yet. So I wanted your reaction for the first time to me about what was it like, the process of watching The Crown, watching this story unfold, and did you feel like it was authentic? Did you feel like they did a good job?
Yeah, it was episode 2 of series 5. It was basically how the book was done, and it was the subterfuge and the kind of secrecy surrounding it, and that was conveyed quite well. I thought it, in a funny kind of way, I thought that the whole story was a lot more dramatic than it was actually on TV. And living through it, it was a daily drama. But obviously on television, you've got to adopt broad brushstrokes and pick out a couple of incidents. So they picked out the time when my office was broken into and files were taken and the camera. And also when the intermediary, a chap called James Colthurst, was knocked off his bicycle after seeing Diana, and one of the tapes went skittering across the road, and he had to rescue it before it was crushed to pulp. So those were some of the dramatic incidents that they incorporated, but there were many, many more. And I've always found that the Diana book was kind of like a watershed moment for the British monarchy. The monarchy had to really think deeply and hard about its nature and purpose.
And did they learn those lessons? Because it felt like two decades later, almost. Yeah, 2 decades later, it felt like we almost saw a similar cycle. So do you felt like they did understand that lesson and try to pivot, or did they let their guard down later in life, and that's why we saw similarities between Harry and Meghan?
Well, I think they certainly pivoted after the Diana book came out, and what wasn't mentioned in the TV drama was the fact that there was the first ever conference held, organised by the Times and the Sunday Times, to discuss the nature and future of the monarchy, and some real big hitters from the world of politics and law and elsewhere really thought through. And so for the first time in a generation, people asked themselves, what is the monarchy for and what is it all about? And of course, with the death of Queen Elizabeth, we've all been asking that same question: what is the monarchy about? And especially these days, with the fact that senior members of the royal family, Prince Andrew and Prince Harry particularly, are no longer working royals. They're standing outside the inner circle, and within the inner circle, you have Kate, to a degree, Fergie, and of course the King himself, all being quite seriously ill, and continuing to be seriously ill. So it's a transformative time.
Absolutely. Illness aside, because that completely rocked the family. We had them saying we're going to step back a bit because we need to heal, we need to recover, and we need treatment. And then we have the general election, which is another reason for the royal family to pull back. How would you grade King Charles on his first year on the throne? Because I did get to see you at his coronation, and it felt like there were glowing reviews, which honestly, it surprised me because I think a lot of people were so critical of Prince Charles, leading up to him becoming king, that there was a lot of doubt that he would make a good sovereign.
Well, to quote from one of Tom Wolfe's books, he is very much a man in full. He's really, he seems to have taken to his new position, his exalted position, as to the manner born, which of course he was. And all those years of waiting have shown that he's been a very safe pair of hands, and not someone who needed to be shown the ropes in any way, shape or form. And I would give him an A for diligence and for the relaxed way he's taken on the job. And he's a lot more touchy-feely than the Queen ever was. I remember on that first day when he returned to Buckingham Palace, he was kissed on several occasions by several different ladies waiting in the crowd. In fact, my daughter shook his hand, and so the House of Morton met with the House of Windsor.
Oh, I love that. Not the first time. Not the first time they met, but I do love that. You talk about the king being touchy-feely, and I've always felt that way too. I do think that he was probably pretty cold during his marriage, inevitably, to Princess Diana, because I think he hit a wall and he felt like there wasn't anything he could do, and he just was kind of exhausted. But I have always felt like he has a soft heart, especially when it comes to his children. Did you read Spare, and what was your reaction to the way that Prince Harry discussed feeling unloved by his father not being there for him? What was your response to that? Because I do think that the king probably, especially for Harry, has a real soft spot.
Well, I mean, the king is, or as Prince of Wales, was notorious for being a very loving father, but letting the courtiers do the telling off or the organising. If, say, Harry didn't want to go to an event, he would say, "Oh, come on, darling boy," and all the rest of it, and then expect a courtier to sort it all out. So he's not been so much a hands-on father as a hands-off father, but nonetheless a very loving one. And this is what people now think, because the story of Charles and Diana's marital breakup is so familiar, we tend to forget that during their marriage, all the royal watchers, and I include myself in this, were totally blindsided by the disintegration of their marriage, because in public they were fairly affectionate to one another, and as my publisher said to me when I first broached the subject of Diana's unhappiness, he pointed at all the books in his office, all the royal books, and he said, "Look at her, all these books. She's smiling in every one of them. If she's so unhappy, how come she's smiling all the time?" And that was one of the intriguing things about the publication of Diana, Her True Story, was that I was very much swimming against the tide. The tide was very much, this is a fairy tale marriage, this is a loving couple, and how dare you even make aspersions against Prince Charles's friend, Mrs. Parker Bowles.
I think it was Geraldo or Phil Donahue or Sally Jesse Raphael, but it's you on a panel, and you are being attacked by a bunch of different royal commentators, all trying to tear apart your credibility, because you were the lone individual saying it's not all happiness and sunshine behind the scenes. So you're absolutely right, and you can still find those clips on YouTube if anybody's curious. It's so funny to see you, back in the day and on those panels. You still have hair. You still have hair. I guess one question I would have is when you see people defending Prince Harry today, a lot of them bring up the fact that Diana wrote Diana, Her True Story in secret. I mean, you did a lot of the work, but they try to compare the two, Diana, Her True Story, and then Harry's Spare. I almost argue that Harry's Spare was a little bit more vindictive because it was Harry saying, this happened to me and I'm resentful over the fact that my brother said or did this, where Diana never thought that that was going to come out. The agreement was it wouldn't until she was long gone. Do you agree with that, or where do you sit there?
Yeah, well, that's a very good point. I mean, Diana was behind the drapes, as it were. She was a figure in hiding, and we didn't say she had anything to do with the book. My constant phrase was, her family and friends have helped, but not the Princess of Wales, in order to give her what we call wiggle room. So in any conversations with the Queen or Prince Philip or Prince Charles about their future, she could look them in the eye and said, I had nothing to do with the Morton book. Of course, with Harry, J.R. Moehringer was his ghostwriter, but Harry was the one who put his name to the book. And that's it's a similar but different kettle of fish, because it's a first person memoir. And one of the things that's actually struck me about it was that neither Harry nor J.R. Moehringer contacted me to say, can I listen to my mother talking, or can I listen to the tapes? And I would have thought I would be the first port of call for Harry, because his memoir, Spare, is very much an affectionate homage to his mother, from page 1 to the last page. His visits to clairvoyance and so on, his visits to the Pont d'Alma, the way that he doesn't make decisions unless he's spoken to her, as it were, in her spirit self in the morning. And so this is a very, I found the book quite a touching memoir. Obviously, we have the little fisticuffs with William, but I mean, quite frankly, if being pushed towards a dog bowl is the height of brotherly antipathy, then they've got a lot more to learn.
Right. I mean, you weren't a little put off by the amount of time he talked about his Todger? Because that was like, whoa, I'm not expecting this at all. Where is this coming from?
There's no question about it. There's TMI. I mean, and the cream he put on was something that his mother used. I mean, there were times where you could feel Moehringer, the ghostwriter, actually, with the harness on and trying to stop Harry from just berating the media endlessly, which would have made the book far less interesting. He made his point, and he continues to make his point about that. But no, for me, it was the relationship with his mother that was the most striking aspect of it, and how that death, his mother's death, transformed his thinking, transformed his life, and made him the man he is today. So when people talk about, oh, it's all down to Meghan and this, that, and the other, I would disagree, because this is something that's been preying on his mind for many, many years.
Well, one point that I've made in the past that I'd like to reiterate is that Meghan, I think even in the Oprah Winfrey interview, tried to distance herself from searching Harry, having anything to do with the royal family previously, but in
she
your
knew
book,
nothing
Meghan,
about them. She knew nothing about them. I mean, when I wrote the Meghan book, I was surprised at how little she had said in public about the royal family. But then again, my wife is American. She doesn't know who Princess Anne is. She has no clue who Princess Margaret is, and why should she? I mean,
but didn't you interview one of her girlfriends who said that her mother had gifted her Diana's book, and she remembered it vividly on Meghan's shelf?
Well,
yeah, because
that's a different time in her life. That was when she was a teenager, but when she's being interviewed on talk shows and so on, she wasn't aware of William and Harry as potential dates or romantic suitors of any kind.
Well, let me tell you, I was. I mean, I'm a little disappointed, Andrew. I was. I wanted to ask you about the evolution, because I felt like this was coming, the evolution of King Charles and Queen Camilla's love story. Because I felt shortly after the Queen died that we would all change our tone. And instead of being this vicious, horrible thing that happened to Princess Diana, this was going to become the greatest love story ever told, not to steal from Jennifer Lopez. But it does seem like since the king has become the king, we are much more open to saying they're soulmates, they're perfect for each other, and there's much less conversation about the drama that led them to where they are today. Was that naturally going to happen once he became king and a likable king?
Well,
Or how did that happen, I guess, is what I want to know.
I think that once the Queen gave the go-ahead to the wedding in 2005, that was the signal for everybody to fall in line. And for the most part, people have fallen in line. Camilla herself has proved herself to be a very generous-spirited and quite energetic Queen, and someone who's been, as it were, leading the line for the royal family over the last few trying months of both her husband and various in-laws recuperating from serious illness.
And were you surprised when the Princess of Wales made that beautiful video where she said, look, I just need some time, Catherine? She said, I just need some time. I'm dealing with something very difficult. I'm trying to protect my children. I remember I was asleep because I'd had a hit at an ungodly hour that morning, and someone woke me up and said, Catherine has cancer. And I said, no, she doesn't. I could not believe that this was hitting this family, not twice, but 3 times. If you include Fergie, Catherine's young, she's gorgeous. She is such an important part of the family. I can't imagine the family without her. She's just so likable. And I was shocked and I was encouraged by her courage. But were you shocked? I mean, have you ever seen anything like this? And throughout studying royal history, have you ever seen such a concerning, I don't know, just a difficult time for the family?
Well, I mean, in the last reign, in Queen Elizabeth's reign, it was never complain, never explain, and certainly never articulate what's wrong with you on primetime TV or on a video. So this was quite extraordinary in terms of the royal family. I mean, George VI, when he had lung cancer, he wasn't even told by his doctors. The Princess Elizabeth was, and so was the Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. So, for the royal family, if you're ill, take an aspirin and carry on. So the fact that Kate was so out there was quite extraordinary by the standards of the British royal family, and of course everyone wishes her well and hopes for a speedy recovery. It is all the more poignant given that she's the mother to 3 young children.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask you one more question, and you're going to hate it because I know you. And then I'm going to let you go. Ingrid Seward, Tina Brown, and Paul Burrell have all said, and it's taken years, but they've all recently said that they felt like Princess Diana would not love the direction that Harry and Meghan have gone. They feel like it's destructive. And Diana might not even like Meghan. Do you have a reaction to that?
Oh, I think that Diana would have been not in awe, but would have been very admiring of Meghan's fluency as a public speaker, because Diana always wanted to be a good public speaker, and she had various lessons, and I helped write some of her speeches over the years, and so I knew how much a good speech meant to her, and Meghan's been very good at that. The irony is she was on the cusp of possibly going to live on the west coast of America herself, and she loved America. She loved Americans, so I don't think she would have been particularly critical of Harry and Meghan for the route that they've taken. And as for Meghan, she's someone who's made her second son very happy, and who adores him and vice versa, and it's a marriage that seems to work, and that's one of the main things that any parent wants for their children. The partner that they have is someone who loves them, is kind, and is thoughtful.
Andrew Morton, you're so sweet. You're just so sweet. I just love you. That was a very sweet answer. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to see you when I'm there.
Okay,
Again,
great.
your number one fan. Wait, I have one more question, even though I know you need to go. Have you kept up with Madonna? Because you wrote an incredible book about Madonna. And Madonna and Diana loved each other, which is why I was interested in reading it. I've been thinking, I wonder what Andrew Morton thinks about Diana's evolution or Madonna's evolution. Have you kept up with Madonna? Are you surprised that she's still pumping out music, still doing these tours? Really quickly, I'd love your reaction on Madonna, then I'll leave you alone.
She's super fit, always been super fit. She's a great dancer, and she's overcome some pretty tough medical matters herself. And no, I'm not surprised that she keeps on going, and she's a great advert for Modern Woman.
Absolutely. All right, Andrew Morton, go buy all of his books. They're available on Amazon or your favorite bookstore. And I'm your number one fan. Thank you for spending time with me today, and I'll see you again soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.